Chapter 10, page 102. At the end of a week, Sir Simon declared that they were ready. He and William would leave at dawn. I will spend the night alone in the chapel, as I did before I became a knight. At daybreak you must come to me, William, and help me dress. After the knight left him, William and Mrs. Phillips sat in her room for a long time. In the quiet of the evening, he held himself still, listening for the world outside the castle, the world of the attic, of his house, of the traffic going by on the main road. But he couldn't hear anything. "Do you think it's still there?" he asked her. "Our own world?" "I'm not sure." "Will we ever get back?" "That depends on you." "Can't you come with me?" he asked, the question that had been at the back of his mind all week. "I still need you to spot me for that final flip." "Remember what Robert once said to us when he first taught me how to spot you. Put your hand out and support him lightly, Mrs. Phillips. Allow William to feel the skill in all parts of his body. You will keep him safe, but he will do the trick." She shook her head. "You must find your own way through the forest, William. That's what I've been trying to tell you all along. In this world and our old one. Come stand here by me." She was seated in front of the fire doing the same needlework he had seen her with the first afternoon. He had never looked at it closely before. "What is it?" he asked. "A fire screen, but that isn't important. Look at the picture." William leaned closer. "I see a man. There's someone with him, someone smaller, and some trees." Her finger touched the man and the smaller person. A man and a boy setting out on an adventure, into a forest. She glanced up at him. "Remember the motto? When the lady doth ply her needle, and the Lord doth test his sword, when the squire shall cross the drawbridge. Remember?" He nodded silently. He had forgotten the exact words. There are rules in the world of magic, just as there are in our world. Everything has its place. Directions must be followed. Each person is given the right weapon. My weapon is the needle and thread. "Will I be all right?" he asked. "You are always asking me that question, William. Now I shall ask you. Will you be all right?" He didn't answer, but went over and stood by the narrow window, looking out into the darkness. Tomorrow and the next day and the day after, where would he be? What would he meet? "I wish you'd never given me the castle. Then you'd be in England and I'd be at home. But now that everything is in place, I'm ready to go." For the first time, the answer came from somewhere deep inside him, and he believed it. "And whatever happens, you must remember one thing," she said, "that you have within you the weapons you need, the heart and soul of a knight and the body of a squire. No other weapon will ever serve you as well as that knowledge." That night he slept in her room on a straw pallet in front of the fire. When he woke up, she was already dressed. She helped him adjust his tunic and slid the soft leather bag along the belt till it hung above his right hip. "It seems heavier," he said, exploring its lumpy exterior with his fingers. "There's some food in there, and your recorder, and your binoculars. I guess I can't take Bear," he said. "Your hands must be free, and he's too large to fit into that bag. Anyway, I'll need some company in this drafty old castle. Now go to Sir Simon," she said, crushing him in a quick hug. "I'll meet you in the courtyard." William slipped both hands through the metal ring of the chapel door and pulled it. He didn't see Sir Simon at first. He stood at the back, accustoming his eyes to the flickering light from the altar candles and his nose to the sweet smell of incense. An enormous wooden cross filled the dark wall just above the altar. William stared up at it for a long time, held by the sight of the face looking down at him. This dark, holy place, with its mysterious and shadows, made him feel small and quiet. At last he saw Sir Simon, lying face down in the main aisle that led to the altar, his arms outstretched. William stayed quiet, waiting. After what seemed like hours, the body moved, and Sir Simon clambered slowly to his feet. He passed his squire with a nod, which William took to mean he was to follow in silence. Sir Simon seemed quieter after his night of fasting and prayer. William remembered his instructions from the week before. First the quilted vest and cap to protect the knight from the hard edges and weight of his own armor. Then the chainmail shirt with the hood that fastened behind the ears. William had to stand on a stool in order to tie the strings tight enough to suit Sir Simon. Next he strapped on the chest protector and the arm and shoulder guards. On top of the chainmail leggings he fastened shin guards to protect the knight's legs from the blow of misdirected lance. Finally, over the knight's head, he dropped the silver tunic, decorated with Sir Simon's coat of arm. The figure of a lion flanked by a cross. "My sword and helmet, William," the knight said at last. "You have done well." Mrs. Phillips appeared at the side door as Sir Simon was strapping on his scabbard. "I have lowered the drawbridge," she said quietly. "Thank you, my lady. Since we have no priest, I would ask that you bless my sword." She stepped forward and touched the carved hilt with her finger. "Remember that you serve both God," she touched one side of the blade, "and the people," she touched the other side. "Protect this knight and his squire from any evil that seeks to harm them or keep them from their chosen path." Sir Simon bowed and slipped the weapon into its sheath. "I would ask of you a keepsake, my lady." "I am honored, Sir Simon." She took a long silk scarf from her neck and tied it around his forearm. "And you shall have mine," he murmured as he handed her the token of Janus. "This is for your protection while we are gone. Guard it well," he said as he pressed the leather pouch into her hand. They gazed at one another for a long, solemn moment. Then he kissed her hand and turned toward the door. "Come, William." William went to her, and she kissed him quickly on the forehead. "You will come back," she whispered before she pushed him gently on his way. As they walked out under the massive stone arch and over the drawbridge, William looked down and saw the muddy waters of a real moat. He reached out to stop Sir Simon and show him, but after a moment's thought, he withdrew his hand. He turned once to wave at Mrs. Phillips, who was still standing under the archway. When he glanced back the second time, the drawbridge had been raised.